Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're finally going to be talking about the 980 Ti. And it doesn't seem that long since the Titan X was launched. Now when the original Titan was launched, the 780 Ti came slightly afterwards. And essentially with the 780 Ti, it came out and it was quite an expensive card. But because the performance was so close to the Titan, which was £1,000 at the time, it kind of fell into the Goldilocks principle, where because there was a much more expensive card, it suddenly made the 780 Ti, even though it was immensely expensive, which it was I think it was like 500 or 600 quid, it made it seem better value. And what's happened with the Titan X, as soon as the Titan X was announced, it was pretty much just a case of watching your watch, looking at the calendar and basically seeing when the 980 Ti was going to follow through. One of the things I will say is I am incredibly shocked that the 980 Ti came out as quickly as it did. There's going to be a lot of Titan X owners watching these reviews with bated breath, and probably, you know, if the past is anything to go by, maybe a little bit worried about their massively expensive purchase as well. It's maybe not going to be something that Nvidia is going to like me talking about too much. When you've just shelled out 900 quid for a card, and we found out just before filming this video that the 980 Ti is going to be coming in at £549 for the reference one. There's a big old price difference there. Now the problem is, and if I bring the little kind of graphic up to show you, there's not an awful amount of difference between the 980 Ti and the Titan X. I made this little graph up. The reason why it's blue rather than red and white like the rest of it is it's still with the old website colours, but you'll see if you watch to the end of the video that some big changes coming pretty soon. But when we go to the streaming processors at the top, you can see that it's only got 2 less than the Titan X. But that's still 6 more than the 980. So you know, they've not really cut a lot off of the Titan X for this. CUDA cores, there's one, I'm pretty sure it's an SMX unit that I've got to remember the words, and don't forget I'm trying to remember a lot of stuff at the moment with all these different cards and stuff. But anyway, so there's 2,816 on the Ti, and then you've got 3,072 on that, and I'm pretty sure that's 256 less. So that's an SMX unit basically yomped off. While we're talking about that quickly, what I do actually know, we'll go to the end and I'll show you. Base clock, pretty much the same as the Titan X, same with the memory. VRAM is half the amount. That's not unexpected. There's 6 rather than 12. Texture fill rate is actually slightly down, but look at the texture fill rate on the 980 in that graph. There's a massive step up to the 980 Ti. Memory clock, same across the board. Memory bandwidth, you can see that it's pretty much, well, it is exactly the same as the Titan X, basically because the memory bus width is the same as well. ROPS is the same manufacturing process, and same TDP of 250 watts. But if I bring this if I bring this image up for you, basically what we've got, and this is the architecture for the Titan X. And if you look down in that bottom right hand corner, you can now see the one SMX unit that they've taken off for the 980. So you can see there's not really a great deal missing. Now you would think that because there was still some taken off, that there would be a massive performance difference. Well, when we go further into the review, I think you're going to be a little bit shocked how little difference that has made in the end. What we're going to do is, I've given you some rough specs right at the very beginning. We're going to now go and take a look at the card, but it's as you would expect it. We've got some overclocking results for you, and we can show you how we've overclocked it as well, and maybe give you a guide. But please remember Silicon Lottery. We also know 549, so we've got the price. We're going to look at some benchmarks, and then what we're going to do is right at the end, we'll come back and we'll have a good meaty conclusion as well. So get yourself comfy. This is the one you've been waiting for. So on to our first look at the card itself. Now this may seem a little strange to most because you can't buy them like this, but this is how the press samples turn up. This is the box, this is the packaging. So I just thought I'd show you because it does look rather nice, and they always do have a way of kind of adding to the hype when they do first arrive. And obviously I know you guys really want to have a look at this, but when this turned up, I really wanted to have a look at it as well, especially when it's all nice like this, and I do keep teasing it. But that's how they arrive to the press. And oh, I can't get over the smell. They always smell so good. It sounds strange, but they do. So that's how they turn up. Obviously, the only thing that's really different is that little bit. As far as the simple look at it is concerned, and how always quite tight to get out. That's what she said. Anyway, so when we pop the old girl out, the simple look, there doesn't appear to be much different to the 980. One thing I did save, even though I have done my testing, I wanted to share the plastic removal with all of you guys. Oh, there it is. I saved that just for you because I've already done all of the testing. So that's how it looks there. When we pop round to this side, we can see a 6 and an 8 pin. But surprisingly, no backplate. So we've got the 980 Ti at the top and then a 980 on the bottom. And I am a bit disappointed we didn't get a backplate on it. I don't know why they haven't done it. I really don't. I don't understand it. I don't understand why the lower card's got one and the higher card hasn't. Really doesn't make a lot of sense. But the only other real difference that we can tell between the two is that. And if I do it that way, you can see we've got a 6 pin and a 6 pin on the 980 and a 6 pin and an 8 pin on the 980 Ti. Now the 980 does have a much lower TDP, but I'll cover that with you in the specifications in a minute. And this one does use a fair bit more. It's kind of more up with the Titan X kind of TDP. But that's really, for a quick look, that's our differences. And I've just realised, look, I didn't even take the plastic off the 980. So we've got the card fitted in our GPU test system, which is a Rampage 4 Extreme Black Edition. It's a 4960X at 4.6 gigahertz. We've got 16 gigabyte of Corsair Dominator Platinum memory. The AX1500i, I always have to explain this because it always comes up in the comments. Yes, it's overkill, but it means that when I do like 2295s or 4 980s, that I don't have to swap it around, and it just sits there. It's just the power supply that we use for everything. We've got a H100i GTX in there. We've got a 240 gigabyte Neutron GTX. And then our dedicated game drive is a 512 gigabyte Force LX, thanks to the likes of games like GTA 5, which are now enormous, and it's all housed in our custom 760D. So we're all about the live testing and the validation of results. So we've just had Valley running for a good while, and I will zoom you in so that you can see. We run it at 1440 and 8 times AA, and that's plain and simple just because it's what we run all the other tests on, because this was back before 4K was even really around. So the reason why we're looking at this right now is we have got power results, and then we've also got to validate our boost clocks and stuff that we were talking about before. So we've already spoken about the 1000 megahertz GPU clock, which is just here. And then we've also been talking about the 1076 megahertz boost clock, which is just here. But we need to remember GPU boost 2 and factor that into our equation as well. And at stock settings, literally with a reasonable case setup, it's been boosting on its own up here. You can see, because these are all set to max, and you can see that we have 1202 megahertz. So it's boosted up from 1076 right the way up to 1.2 gigahertz, which is a fair old stomp. Now, the temperature test here, 84 degrees. One of the things that we do need to remember with the Nvidia cards is they will boost up to a temperature limit. You can manually reduce that temperature limit in the control panel, or you can use things like Afterburner and stuff like that, and you can literally just set that to 70 if you want, and what will happen is your boost will not go up that high, and it will more than likely spin your fan numbers a little bit faster. But we've only had a 53% fan speed while we were running that. So that's the reason why the 84 just sits there all nice and happy. It's designed to go up that far. and get you the absolute best overclock here that you want. If you're not happy with your 84 degrees, like I said, go into Afterburner, smash it to 75 or something, and this will just be a little bit lower, or your fan speed will go up a little bit. Most important reason why we're here though, big old bit here with the old Corsair Link. I've been using Corsair Link to record the power in and out, so the power from the wall and stuff like that. We've been using this for quite a while, and I've even been running tests with Corsair Link linked up with my power supply tester, and quite literally it's like 1 or 2 watts, maybe 3 watts on the absolute outside edge on some of the results. Difference between a power supply tester to the actual result here, so it's incredibly accurate. A 3 watt difference is nothing. But anyway, so what we can say here is 425 watt from the wall was an absolute top end maximum. That's remembering that we're running a 2011 rig here. Now if I bring the graph up, when we tested it with the overclock, we actually managed to get 457 watts from the wall. But you can see in the graph that we've got a good array of results here. One of the things that we can see is we got 425 for the stock, and then we got 457 with the overclock. And you can see that with an overclock, the 980 Ti is roughly pulling the same amount of power as the XFX 290X 8GB did. We did have the stock 290X right at the top with a 504 watt pull, but then right down the bottom, just to give you a bit of comparison, a normal 970 is going to be pulling 332 watts. So there's your power tests for you. Because I know a lot of people like to know about greenness, but then a lot of people just want to know about performance. So I guess that's what we need to talk about now. So it may seem strange to start an overclocking segment showing you Valley, but there is method to my madness, and I don't care if it takes a little bit longer, because the fact was I wanted you to see that it was running and stable. Obviously validating results is a big thing. But anyway, so overclocking. So here we have all of our stock stuff. You can see here I used Asus GPU tweak. I just seem to be using it more and more recently. Asus GPU tweak doesn't like MSI cards, and one of the things I've noticed is that the MSI Afterburner doesn't like Asus cards. So anyway, I just seem to be using this more. Not going to go any more with it anyway, but what we can see here is boost clock, we went up to 1290. GPU voltage, we notched it up a little bit up to 1218. We did put the power target up to 110. I don't normally touch the power target, but this did like the power target being touched. Again, some cards like that, some cards don't. This one did. So what we then see is here we go 1214, the boost 1290, but, and this is the critical thing, we look up here, 1429.4 megahertz once the GPU Boost 2 has kicked in. So 1.4 gigahertz with your 980 Ti, absolute blinder. Wicked little overclock that. We can see that it did put the power target up by 25 watts to 442, it's saying on that one. When we did the original testing, it was 447. So whether it's running in and it's now using less, a bit like a new car uses less fuel after a couple of 100 miles, who knows? But it did use a little bit less wattage. And you can see here that we run exactly the same sort of test again, which was 2560 by 1440 and 8 times AA for Valley. So then you can also see up here with our temperatures, 84 again, because it was an absolute max, because that's as far as it will go. The fan actually didn't spin up as much this time. We did run the Valley test a little bit less. As it progressed, it probably would have got, the percentage would have gone up a little bit more. But what we can tell from this is you need to overclock it, really. It's actually pretty easy. Just remember the silicon lottery. I've only shown you that so that you can see what I got. Your card may react very different. So please remember, you may not need all of that power target or all of those volts. You may not even get that high, but the most critical thing to remember is you may get more. So please please, for the love of God, do yourself some justice. If you're going to overclock one of these, please take some time to see how far you can push it. You can see in this test that we've not touched that memory on this one either, and that does actually scream off into the distance. The memory will do you great favours with larger resolutions or more AA as well, because that's your frame buffer, and the more that you can get in and out throughout those, it will speed your games up. Just a little heads up, boys and girls. Okay then, peeps. So we're going to move on to some game results and some benchmark results. And we've been trying to mix things up a little bit. So what I've got is I've actually got the graphs that I'm just about to magically bring up on the screen so that I can talk you through them. You get to see a little bit of my ugly face, but rather than just staring at the graphs, you can kind of wince about my ugly mug as well. So when we bring the first one up, we've gone with the, we're going to start off with the old and the best. And I have to get them the right way around because I need to do like a news presenter shuffle. The old one, which is 3D Mark Vantage. You might wonder why we're still using it, but it is actually a really good stress test. It's a really good long one. You do get a bit of mix between CPU results in there as well as your graphics card results. But when we run all of our tests with the same CPU, we can distinguish between all of our results rather lovely. But the other good thing about the 3D Mark Vantage results is we've literally got everything we've ever tested. So although this graph may look enormous on the screen right now, I can promise you it's actually about 5 times longer. And this is the top of the graph. So what we can see is you've got the 980 Ti, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 down. But we've also got the 980 Ti overclock, because the overclock did make a spondulic amount of difference, as I've shown you already. But when we talk about the results, we've got the two. So one of the most important things is we didn't get a lot of time to test our 295X2. So as far as the benchmarks results are going, especially when you look on the main website, if the 295 isn't in the results, it's not been taken out. It's just because we didn't test that, because like I said, we didn't get a lot of time. We did a few results through, and a lot of our games were only done at 1440, because when we had our that, we didn't even have a 4K screen. We do now have another one we could test, and we may well end up adding that in before any possible future other team graphics card launches. But anyway, so that's the reason why they're not in there, just so that you know. Right, so here basically what we can see is pretty much all of the 980s are below. Even the high-end 980 Tis, all of those, they're all pretty much below here. And the nice thing is that the stock 980 Ti and the overclock 980 Ti literally has the Titan X smack bang between the two. The other not important thing, but something to point out here is that the 295X2 is actually above both. But we will move swiftly on because I want to save me talking about all types of stuff for the conclusion. I don't want to go into too much detail here. Moving on to 3D Mark. It's pretty much, if you've not got the 3D Mark bench set by FutureMark, then you really do need to go and get it. You can even download it, you don't have to pay for it. You can do limited benchmark runs to give yourself an idea on the way that your system might compare to ours. So when we move on to that, again, we've got the 980 Ti, the Titan X just above. Interestingly, with this one though, the Titan 980 Ti does go above the 295X2 once that overclock is enabled. Again, above it is literally just multiple cards, multiple cores, so you know, 2 980s for argument's sake, 2 780s. You could say that the 295X2 kind of belongs there as well, but as far as single core performance is concerned, pretty much the top of this graph is just dominated with green teams, and I'm looking down, and below that there isn't an AMD offering at all below that 295X2 on that graph. I do think we have to go quite a bit further down if we were going to do it. Like I said, if we put all our results up, the graphs would be enormous. They wouldn't fit on YouTube for starters, but the graphs on the website would be massive. We may go that way, but you know, do you know what I mean? You'd literally be there scrolling for days with all of our results. When we bounce on, we go on to Firestrike Ultimate. It's an update that Firestrike have done recently to enable a 4K resolution test. And that's pretty good as well, because it does separate the men from the boys as far as this is concerned. Just to clarify as well, where it is new, we haven't been able to test the 295X2, but we are going to be running a batch test probably at some point this week. I don't think we'll bother doing like a dedicated publication of them, but you will see them in upcoming reviews 100%. So whenever we do any new 980 Tis, for example, when the vendor cards come through, they'll all be in the results, and any other possible cards that might get released in the future, they'll all be in there as well. Anyway, so 980 Ti here, 4,033 points. Titan X smack bang above it with like, I can't even work out the maths here, say about 20 points. I think it's like 18 points difference just above. Smash that overclocking though and have a look at that. It goes 4,671, just literally kind of launches above it. And at that point as well, it does pull right in front of the Titan X overclock as well. Don't forget, this is stock card. With, you know, nothing special about either of them, no special BIOSes, no vendor stuff. It's literally how Nvidia wanted you to have them, and you can see that the 980 the 980 Ti with the overclock does pull in front. Again, I want to start deviating about drivers and past things that have happened with Titans and like 780s, for example. I want to save that for the conclusion. Next graph is a 4K gaming comparison. I thought there's a lot of you out there that might find this quite interesting. Thinking about it in hindsight, I probably should have put the Titan X in there as well, but it really wasn't a huge difference to go from the 980 Ti to the 980 and then the Titan X. When it comes to gaming, the reason why I did leave the graph like this is because the 980 and the 980 Ti are the ones that they aim at the gamers at the end of the day. They kind of say that the Titan X is for those out there with far too much money, or, you know, want the extra compute and all that type of stuff. It's a complicated beast, but either way, we've got the two in here. You can have a look down the side. Don't forget you can pause, and don't forget, if you want to go and have a look, you can click through to the main review. There's a card, there's an annotation, there's all that kind of stuff. You can go and click through to the main Overclock 3D website, so you can make your own assumptions between the two. But at least you did get a dedicated head-to-head, so you didn't have loads and loads of results, and you did get a chance to, you know, at least see the two, you know, see the differences, because the games do make a big, you know, a big part of people's buying. You know, clickability, what you want to do, basically. What, you know, games is where you want it. Congratulations for making it to the conclusion. I know people have probably already posted in the comments, where has my chair gone and what have I changed it to? So essentially, it's a GT Omega. And it's the cloth one. I asked them for a cloth one. I will be reviewing it shortly, but I think the fact that I've got rid of the dentist chair and I'm now sat in this should speak volumes about how comfy this thing is with my rather portly bottom on it. Cut it in. Anyway, right, so award for the 980 Ti, £549. I'm going to admit, well, we'll say now gold award. I had conversations over the weekend that I actually thought this card was going to come in around the $599 mark, because I had heard rumours that it was going to be $749. I didn't think that was too bad, to be honest with you, especially with the price of the Titan X and the fact that I'd already tested it by the time we were making these discussions. So with the performance, I was thinking $599 would have been a good price. Nvidia then come out with a $649 price tag and announced that the GBP price that they were going to be MRSPing, or is it MSRPing? I can never remember which way around it is. But anyway, they then went $549 with it. You may be lucky to find a £549 card, because obviously when the vendors put their different coolers and all that type of stuff on it, sometimes it can drive the price up. Some may end up actually being cheaper. You're never going to know. And obviously I'm talking and filming this video before there's even any listed in shops. So it's a little bit difficult for me to be able to gauge all this sort of stuff. But £549 I thought was absolutely mind-blowing. Here's another one for you. We're reviewing the card as a whole, but considering that we know things are going to be happening with other vendors in the not too distant future, one of the things I can say now in this video is that they've actually put the, we've heard $499 for a 980. So they're going to be slashing the 980 price. If that then correlates to a £399 GBP 980, then suddenly the 980 has just taken on a whole new realm of performance. Obviously, we knew they were going to take the 980 price down a bit because they've put another card in its place, but I wasn't quite, ready for that much of a cut. If it does end up coming in at £399, then oh my days, has the graphics card market just hotted up. So what we need to kind of do is get something out of the way, because I know there's going to be an infinite, and I mean an absolute amazing amount of people shouting about the 295X2. If you have a look on the website, I have explained in the earlier bit of the video, we didn't get a lot of time to test our 295X2. So our games were done at 1440, because at that point in time we didn't have a static 4K monitor. So our games went up to that. So that's why they're not in the game graphs. Otherwise it would just be a single bar, because generally our results are 1440 and 4K. But we have got all the benchmark results there. Now you do need to remember, yes, the 295, it kind of chops and changes. There is a couple of times when the 295X2 is above the 980 Ti. One of the things that we can go with the 295X2 though is, we do have to balance all this up. And one of the things that Nvidia did when they released the 980, or at least released Maxwell, is they make the architecture was so refined. It was using it was just the power that it was using was unbelievable. So the 980 Ti, yes, it's using the same kind of power as the Titan X. One of the things we do need to kind of put across there is it's using the same sort of power, quite often less than a 290X. Now, yes, the 290X is an older architecture, but even when it did come out, it was using more power than the 780s were. So the fact that Nvidia have not only refined their architecture, but they've moved forward with performance as well. And that was something that, is quite difficult to achieve. To make something use less power, but in the end end up starting to chuck out more performance, is something that you generally don't get. Normally you get it uses less power and then performance might come later, and they keep having to refine it and keep working on it. But they kind of yomped this straight through, and it was doing both. So with the 980 Ti, yes, we know that the Titan X is like the best that the core is ever going to be, but with the 980 Ti, you've kind of got that sweet spot with price, performance. I mean, I'm really going to be looking forward to seeing the vendor cards on this, because with the results that we were getting on this, a decent cooler on this, and you could end up seeing higher overclocks. A decent cooler on this, even if it meant just lower temperatures and more stability with the overclocks. Although mine was stable for benchmarking and testing and stuff, it's not like I gamed on it for 24 hours solid, which I know a lot of you might do, or even 6 or 12 hours solid. Mine are lots and lots of broken tests and runs and everything like that. And as long as it's passing all the tests and doesn't, ever artifact or fall over, that to me is a stable run. Not necessarily it being, 22 degrees outside and you've been running on a Sunday afternoon in your pajamas and you've been playing GTA 5 for 6 hours. But anyway, at the end of the day, the 980 Ti is absolutely mind-blowing, and the fact that it's AMD's only answer at this present moment in time is 2 cores of something else. It's almost like the whole Intel argument again. And I'm not a fanboy about this at all. I'm just giving you the facts. So Nvidia have got a 980 Ti out now for 550 quid, which, yes, all right, it is going to be slightly more expensive than your 295X2, but you're not going to have to mount an AIO cooler in the front. You're not going to be baking your spuds on the top of your case either, and you're also not going to be selling a kidney to make sure that the electric company doesn't come running after you at the end of each month. It's a much more refined, and that's the most important thing. It's a much more refined and more of a modern product, because the 295X2 is obviously slightly older. Obviously, the 295X2 has now got budget on its side, because you can pick them up quite cheap. There's a reason for that. It's just because everything else has kind of moved on. But it's kind of a really interesting time because I'm having to watch what I say, because there's a lot of things that might be happening in the not too distant future. But what I think Nvidia have done is, I think that rather than wait till after, which is a normal Nvidia practice, normally they will sit around and then they'll just come in later on. What Nvidia have done is they've gone, well, we've got this, we're just going to put it out and see if they can cope. But obviously I don't know anything concrete or anything yet, but I think Nvidia have really gone in. We obviously know that the performance is going to be epic, or is epic, I should say. But I think Nvidia have been really, really clever with their pricing. Like I've already said, wasn't expecting the price to be this low. Some of the rumours I've been hearing about other stuff going on is that the Nvidia, the 980 Ti is priced low. So whether this is going to make a whole new war about, stuff, it's certainly, Nvidia are really, really gunning for your money on this one. And I think they've played, as far as a consumer is concerned, I think they have played an absolute blinder. Might not be so great for AMD in the long run, as far as Nvidia trying to drive prices down. So it's not good for kind of like big business, but it's really good for us not having to empty our wallets. We're going to have to see where it goes. Like I said, there's a lot I've not really been able to say. I've diverged off of the 980 Ti quite a bit. But at the end of the day, like I said, Nvidia have been, I think they've been incredibly clever with that pricing. I mean, incredibly clever. And I think that's another reason why they've gone early, is because they could go down that low. It's an epic card for the money. The vendor cards are only going to be better than this as well. Like I said, they're going to look better. If you don't like the green and stuff, it really is going to be an exciting time. The performance is absolutely epic, especially with an overclock on it. And it's something that Mark, on one of the guys that works for me and does the news on the site, and there's a new addition to OC3D, but he coined the phrase 980 Ti, meaning 980 Titan irrelevant. Now, Nvidia are going to absolutely hate me for saying it, because they still say that the Nvidia, the Titan is like their proper flagship card, and it's got all the extra compute stuff and all that extra VRAM. I've got to say that for the few games out there that actually are going to need the Titan at the moment, in case you're wondering what this line is, because the sun's going down outside, that are actually going to need that VRAM, it really, the 980 Ti really is 980 Titan irrelevant, because R1 is outbenched the Titan X, and when the last Titan come out, as drivers were updated, the drivers favoured the 780 Ti more than they did the Titan. So the gap just steadily increased with the difference between the two. If that happened again this time, then all those people that ran out and bought the Titan X are going to wish they'd waited a couple of extra weeks and ended up buying the 980 Ti instead. Like I said, Nvidia aren't going to like me for saying that, but we're all a member of the real world here. And the real world is, if it was my money and it really came to it and I had to choose between the two, as far as a gaming card was concerned, it would be a 980 Ti. It's an absolutely groundbreaking card, and it's epic. Now, I know this is more than likely going to be the end of the Maxwell series of cards, but what a way to finish it. They've pulled an absolute blinder out with this one, and the next few weeks in the industry, or at least we can say Computex onwards and sort of like June, the next few weeks in the graphics card world are going to be amazing, and it's given me such goosebumps to test this and have this all in and be able to talk to you about all this stuff. And it's times like these that I love my job. I really, really do. But for now, at least, with an absolutely killer 980 Ti review, if you were waiting to choose between the two, oh my God, I don't think you would have been prepared for how good this is compared to the Titan X. But anyway, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Remember, I'm trying not to say so much stuff. Look at that line, you're still waiting. Out. Ding!